Hello, the doc is in, and welcome back to another chapter of One Punch Man, chapter 168, Awakening of the Gods. In the last chapter, we have Garou and Saitama going at it. They are throwing their hands crazy. We have Blast in the Galactic Federation of the Universe being like, serious punch squared, that's kind of a earth level threat, let's move that to space. They move the punch's damage effect radius into space, and it creates a giant energy blast of such epic proportions that theoretically it may have created a giant void in space. Now it has been questioned if that's actually what happened, if it's not just that, like, you know, when they did the portal thing, kind of created like a weird space array thing where it just looks like that, but that's not, it didn't destroy everything. But personal headcanon, universe level Saitama, well, at least serious punch squared, at least, right? So after being sent to space, they get launched into the moon of Jupiter. Saitama's going at it with Garou. He's like, cut the bullshit, I'm gonna beat that ass. And Garou, he's trying to throw hands, but he literally cannot keep up. He gets serious table flipped, serious multi-directional punch, I think that's the name of the attack. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, and the chapter ends off with Garou basically being like, I'ma just copy him. If I can't beat him, join him. And here we are. At the start of this next chapter, we have Garou and Saitama going back and forth. Start off with Garou throwing a portal punch. He's at a distance from Saitama. He punches. His fist goes through the portal right in front of Saitama's face, but he ducks it. Mind you, Saitama's naked. It's a completely separate issue. But he throws the punch. Saitama, well, he doesn't duck it, but he kind of does like that Neo thing where he like bends his back backwards, like the bullet time thing, whatever. And so as Garou throws his punch, and after Saitama dodges it, he then retaliates by throwing his fist through Garou's portal. He's using Garou's portal against him. It's ridiculous. Punches him in the face, but Garou, he's a martial artist, all right? He knows how to counter. So when he gets hit in the face, he creates a portal in front of him, so then he flies backwards. He flies then behind Saitama through the portal, of course. And then he goes for a bicycle kick, but Saitama's already on guard, and he throws a punch right to the abdomen of Garou, sending him flying once again. But Saitama does get kicked into the floor. Not like knocked onto the floor like on his back or something, but like he just gets physically kicked into the floor of the moon. And so once again, Garou, using the same technique, he goes flying into a portal from Saitama's momentum of his punch, then tries to get Saitama, but he quickly jumps up into a rock that's in the air from the table flip, then jumps back down, copying Garou's move that he'd used earlier in their fight, and he does a karate chop. He copied the copycat martial artist. I was gonna say copycat ninja, but patent pending for Kakashi, so let me not get myself copyrighted. And he just hits that man with a chop. It creates just lightning. His chop was so strong it created lightning. That didn't make sense. And he hits him with this chop, right? Garou got slapped. All right, he got slapped. All right, and even he notices. He's like, dang, he's copying my moves. And he got Saitama's like face, and he's basically like, what's wrong? I thought you were gonna surpass me. Come on, keep going. Beat me right here, right now. And Garou's thinking in his head, he's like, I'm copying him, and I'm able to match his hits. But as soon as I match his hits, he then just hits me harder. What is going on? And so they're going back, and we just see them going back and forth. We have Garou throwing a punch right into Saitama's stomach, and Saitama then proceeds to uppercut him. Mind you, he's only fighting with one hand. I cannot stress, he's only fighting with one hand, and he's bullying Garou at this point. And we just see Saitama beating the crap out of Garou as we get a little infographic to show what's currently going on. So Saitama's above Garou in the first image of the graph, right? And we have Garou a decent amount below him. And then as they're rising up in power over time, Saitama's curve is tighter than Garou's, and it's moving faster. And a couple infographics up is like he's like far beyond Garou at this point, right? In terms of power. Even Garou points out he's like, at this rate, one of these stray punches, all right, these aren't even named attacks at this point. He's like, one of these stray punches finna kill me. And as it's explained, is basically that what is going on in the universe is that Saitama has no limiter, right? That's been pretty well established in the community, and I believe in the story. I think it's pretty much outright said. And so his power is continually growing. But the problem is people around him are so far below him that they wouldn't even be able to realize that he's getting stronger, because they're already so, it's like an ant looking at a mountain. Like, they wouldn't even be able to conceive the idea that the mountain's growing, because they're just so far away from the peak of the mountain that is like the idea that it possibly could be getting bigger. It could even be getting shorter and they wouldn't realize. It's just too far beyond them. But Garou, on the other hand, he was in reach for a while, all right? Cosmic Fear Garou was kind of pressing him for a second. And so with him copying him, he was like, yeah, I'm matching him. Like, he could point out that, yes, I'm close to his power level, which is why I need to match him. But at this point, with Saitama's emotions and everything, along with just the general growth of everything, he's getting exponentially stronger in this very moment, to the point where someone like Garou, who was once in his realm of strength, has now been completely eclipsed by the sheer magnitude of Saitama's strength at this point. And so we have a little gag moment, and Saitama's like, dang, all my clothes are gone. It's getting kind of cold out here. In space. He's talking about getting cold in space. No atmosphere. Just anyway. So he's talking about being cold in space. You get a little gag. And so we have Garou once again coming out through a portal. He's throwing a punch, and Saitama catches it while, I can only assume, staring at his junk. And Saitama gets a little itchy in his nose. You know how it be. You know, sometimes you're just doing nothing and you're like, you just gotta sneeze. So he starts on, you know, the air starts coming here like, I gotta sneeze. And so the narrator, I guess you could say, says there was no longer anybody left to measure what level Saitama's strength had reached, in reference to the mention of the infographic and how Saitama's strength is exponentially growing at this point, to the point where Garou, who was once in his realm of strength, has now been completely eclipsed by this point in the sneeze. And Saitama sneezes, alright? It's not even an attack. He sneezes. It is called serious sneeze. And what kind of damage does a serious sneeze do? Well, you know, I don't know. It kind of like makes a little valley on the mood of Io. Okay, it's cool. I mean, you know, Saitama lifted, like, pretty much destroyed the whole planet and lift everything in the air, you know, whatever. That's cool. And then the sneeze hits Jupiter. It's like, creates a dent. It's pretty cool. It blows up the fucking planet. There's a giant, the sphere that is theoretically at the center of planets. Oh, that's just exposed from a sneeze by accident. I cannot stress that was hilarious, by the way. That panel made me both lose my mind and laugh, because that is such a ridiculous idea that at this point, Saitama sneezes are large planet level, not a power scalar. That's gotta be some bullshit, alright? One of his highest feats is that he sneezed at a planet and it fucking broke. Think about that. Just think about that for a second. Alright, let's continue the chapter. So Garou dodges that, alright? So, because I'm pretty sure he would have just straight up fucking died. That would have been ridiculous. But he dodges it, right? He's like, what in the fuck is going on? This man cannot make it back to Earth, because what the hell? And so they're kind of flying away because I guess the power of the sneeze kind of blew them back out into space, right? And so Garou's like, yeah, I'm portaling this man into the fucking sun. And he portals him. He hits him with a punch and he portals his ass towards sends him towards the sun, right? And he's like, yeah, I'm out of this bitch. And he portals himself back to Earth, right? And as soon as he gets back to Earth, he's like, yeah, I finally lost that guy. And Saitama's behind him. You finally made it back. He said, your ability's pretty nifty. What? Garou loses his mind. He's like, holy fuck. And immediately, Saitama's already running back the hits. He's like, I know. He's just like, yeah, you catching this fist. And so Garou, logically here, he's like, I just punched you in the direction of the sun. All right? I sent you flying. Why are you here? And he's like, oh, well, my stomach, I got a little rumblies in my tumblies. And then I had to fart. And so I farted into your portal in a way that you could not notice. And then punches him in the face. I mean, that is pretty crazy. Serious fart. Think about that. Serious fart. Saitama's blitzing people's perception by farting too hard. Shit's crazy. And so Saitama punches him in space. They're in space. And they punches him back into orbit. He smashes his face and like his normal face starts coming out. Right? And Garou's like, at this point, why don't you just kill me? And Saitama's like, well, for what it's worth, I am still a hero. And it was that kid's final request for me not to kill you. And he's like, that kid's final request? And we find out that little kid, oh yeah, he died. That cosmic radiation, that cancer, yeah, it kind of hit different. And Garou loses his mind. I mean, he goes full like 5-year-old I'm devastated mode. Like he starts screaming, crying, and he runs away like a child. And he trips. He's crying, like space crying, and he trips on a rock and falls on his face and continues to cry. I mean, I know it's supposed to be emotionally, like, this is supposed to be emotionally huge. This is big. But on the other hand, I'm like, that is hilarious. Like, that is this guy who is all about being the greatest devastation to the world. And Blast literally tells him, if you stay on the planet, people are quite literally going to die because you're physically here. And he's like, yeah, it's kind of a vibe. And he's like, oh, the kid dies. He's like, oh my God, how could this happen? You knew it was gonna, you should have known. He's on the planet. Anyway, so right, we have Saitama and Garou's like, you know, having existential crisis about killing the kid. Garou's like, and Saitama's like, you know, ever since you came back from the sky and, you know, turned into that, you've been acting weird. Are you sure somebody didn't do something to you? And it's like, Garou doesn't quite admit to it, but he's basically like, well, if somebody did, it would be because my spirit's weak. And then we have Garou once again going on his tirade about ultimate evil. He's like, yo, you can't be absolute evil if I get beaten by a hero, and then that hero then proceeds to effectively assault his whole like philosophy in life by saying, I'm not even really a good hero for real. Like that's kind of crazy. Being like, I became this ultimate evil to beat heroes and stuff and create like unite the world under one evil force. But he's like, if I'm gonna lose the hero, I at least want to lose. If I'm gonna lose the hero, I want to lose to a stereotypical hero. And the stereotypical hero that shows up is like, I'm not even really a hero. I'm like a hero. That's like my part-time job. The disrespect. But he deserves it because this is a stupid dream. And so Garou kind of points out, he's like, dang, you know, I was trying to save that kid, blah blah blah. Like he's kind of like, you know, explaining like his whole goal, right? And Saitama kind of analyzes him. He's like, trying to save him? Are you sure you weren't just clinging on to that kid for support? And Garou's like, clinging? Me? What would you know? And he looks at Saitama, right? And get this really shaded, scary look of Saitama as he's holding the cord, right? And Garou kind of like, he has a moment, and he's looking at him, he's kind of thinking, he's like, clinging onto him for support. Is that perhaps what Genos was for you? And so we don't really get too much elaboration on that, but Saitama then asks, what are you gonna do now? And so Garou kind of sits there, he thinks about his actions, and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna ask you for a favor. Ask you for a request you cannot refuse. It's basically like, all right, with the power of my fist, I know all the flows of the universe, whatever, I know all the thingies, right? You probably can learn everything I know. So I'm going to disperse onto you all the knowledge, like the ultimate technique and all this knowledge onto you, because you're going to be able to copy it without getting it from God. So God won't have any effect on you as you learn this stuff, right? Which theoretically, considering what's going to happen, could relate to blasts in a number of ways. But for right now, whatever. We have Saitama basically being like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, sure. And like he sees Garou's determination about this. He's like, all right, if you feel that strongly about it, I'll vibe with it. And so we have them start doing like that. Like we have Garou's like energy, his chest starts swirling and everything. He's like, if anybody who could defeat God, it's gonna be you. So I'm gonna teach you this ability. You're gonna need it. And so we have God showing up, and he's like, shut up. I'm taking my powers back, bitch. And so we have Garou starting to turn white. I believe it said that he's kind of turning into salt. And as he's turning white, we have Saitama being like, what in the fuck? You got him blown out. We got Garou blowing away in the air. He's like salt, which is why we say he's turning into salt. But Garou's like, nah. I'm dying. You need to concentrate. You're gonna fix this. And so as they're doing this, right, we have the positive and negative atoms, I guess, particles, whatever. Basically, they're diverting away from each other, right? In Garou's body, it's kind of represented by like kind of what like his silhouette looks like. And Saitama's are, it seems like they're just vibing. I don't even think they're doing what Garou's are doing. But basically happens that as he's doing this, right, Saitama starts flowing backwards, and he's confused, and Garou's basically like, yeah, you're doing it. And so what's basically happening here is that Garou taught Saitama how to go back in time. And so Garou, in his final moments, as he's just about to turn completely into salt and die, he's like, go back to the past and defeat the ominous future, which is kind of a drippy line. But he sends him back, and Garou dies. I mean, he just dies, which is pretty fucking crazy. And so as they're flowing back, all right, we got naked Saitama, rippling abs, by the way, physique I need. But we have Saitama flowing backwards in time. He's seeing all the images of what happened, right? And he kind of like congratulates Garou. I mean, Garou's not there, but he's kind of like just like, dang, Garou, your martial arts is really awesome. And so he sees Garou like really early on. He's like sees Garou kind of say like, I'm that ominous future, the last level god. And he's like, ominous future? Was I able to beat that guy up? Alright, let me just And he throws a punch. Not named, he throws a punch. And, you know, we have that scene where everybody's looking at Garou, right? And he's radiating cosmic energy, everybody's running away, right? And then we have him looking up, he's like, think, and he gets decked in the chin by Saitama from the future. And the way it's explained is like this. Saitama threw his punch from the future into the past, right? And the strength of Saitama from the future is so great after the fight, in the situation on Jupiter's moon, that a normal punch, as I mentioned, is not a named punch at all. A normal punch from this version of Saitama one-shots Garou. But further than that, he didn't just one-shot Garou. No. He never even punched him. Why? Because that punch is from the future. That punch never hit the intended target, which was a future being that does not exist. He beat Garou in 0 punches. Think about that. And the reason why, and you may say, well, it doesn't really count because he did throw that punch. Well, this Saitama doesn't even exist, because right after throwing this punch, right, Genos is like, oh shoot, is that my dude? Why is he naked? And Garou just instantly gets, like I said, he loses in 1 punch, or 0 punches for that matter. he gets hit, he starts coughing up blood, his mask breaks immediately, and all the energy starts leaving from his face hole. It's like my power, it's just leaving me, and he just loses. And then as Saitama's kind of watching this happen, his body then combines with Saitama's old body, and he then is like very confused about what's going on. He's like, what the heck is, where am I? I got hit by that gamma ray burst, and then what? And he's holding Garou's Genos's, he's still holding Genos's core, right? But this is from the, at this point, alternate timeline. And he's like, what? And then he looks at his pants, and well, his meat is out. And then Genos proceeds to tackle him with his jet buster thing. I'm like, what? And so that's it. That's how the chapter ends. Genos tackles Saitama, and Saitama's hella confused, and we don't know whether he knows about what happened in the alternate timeline or not, but that's where we leave off. And then the chapter. I mean, 72 pages of beauty, artwork, great combination, great culmination of the arc. I mean, this chapter is, by many people's account, a 10 out of 10. I would give it a 100 out of 10 because this shit slaps to a different degree. Alright, this is a great chapter. If there was a one way to end the saga off that wasn't as hilarious as Garou and Saitama sitting down in that house, this is it. Because I'll say, to kind of end off the video a little bit, I'll leave discussion for maybe a future video if I get around to it. I realize that there's a lot of times when I say I'll do a future video, discussion video, and I never get around to it. But this one I might get around to. Maybe. I'm very busy. I cannot promise anything. But we have the issue amongst the community, right? They're complaining like, oh my god, Saitama's supposed to be One Punch Man. The gag is ruined. How can Saitama be One Punch Man if he's not one punching people? Well, look at that. We got the whole fight, all right? Everybody was enjoying the fight or whatever. The fight's not over, and you know what? Saitama not only beat Garou in one punch, but actually he beat Garou in less than one punch. There you go. Happy now. Look at that. Great chapter. I mean, so much shit happened in this chapter. All right, so we're definitely gonna discuss about this in a future video, hopefully. But for right now, leave a like if you like the video, leave a dislike if you dislike. Comment literally anything. Comment about anything about the chapter, really. I'll be in the comments. I'll be there. So feel free to talk. Subscribe if you enjoy videos like these. You want to see more videos of me covering this manga along with others, / doing discussions and streams and etc. There's a lot of stuff to be seen. All right, so check those things out, and the doc is out. Peace.